This is Lesson 2-3B from the Algebra Readiness textbook. For today's lesson, you will need a sharpened pencil and your notes packet. Gather your supplies and click Continue. Today's learning target is to simplify expressions by combining like terms. When you think of the word combining, what operation does that generally bring to mind? Hopefully, if you are talking about combining your money with your sibling to buy a video game, you're thinking of adding your money together. And that's what combining means here also. We are going to add like terms together. So remember what like terms are. Like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. So for example, A and 6a are like terms. M and 3m squared are not like terms because this has an m to the second power. Even though the variable is the same, it is not raised to the same power. So make sure you're aware of that. Okay. So in order to simplify a variable expression, you simply combine any like terms and any constants separately. So what you're going to do, step 1, rewrite the problem with only addition. So change any subtraction to adding the opposite. Also write in the invisible 1 coefficients. So if you have just a variable with no coefficient, make sure to squeeze a 1 in there to remind yourself what that is. Step 2, use the commutative property to rearrange the terms to put your like terms next to each other. Then you're going to use the associative property to group your like terms and simplify. Now that seems like a lot, but it's not so bad. Let's look at this first one. The first thing we need to do is, step 1, rewrite the problem with only addition. When I look at this, I see that it's already only addition. So I have nothing to do for that step. Step 2, let's put the like terms next to each other. Well, what are my like terms? To me, I can see that 5x, 3x, and 4x are my like terms. Also, my like terms are my constants, 6, 2, and 1. So I am now going to shuffle these so that all of my x values are together and all of my constants are together. And that looks like this. Here are my, oopsie. There are my constants. And these are the x's. The next step says, use the associative property to group and combine your like terms. So really the associative property is putting those parentheses in to group them. When I add 5 plus 3 plus 4, I get 12x. And when I add 6 plus 2 plus 1, I get 9. So 12x plus 9. This is the simplest as you can make it. You cannot call this 21x because that 9 doesn't have an x after it. So make sure you get comfortable calling it 12x plus 9. Okay, now the next one. Let's go through these steps one more time with another problem. 5m plus 2 minus 2m, or 2m minus 6. Now I see that I don't have all addition. I would want to rewrite this as adding the opposite. So I would rewrite this as 5m plus 2, change subtraction to adding. The opposite of 2m is minus 2m, then adding negative 6. Now I've rewritten this as adding the opposite. And now you can see I have only addition. Step 2. Use the commutative property to rearrange the terms so the like terms are together. My like terms are 5m and negative 2m. My other like terms are positive or are 2 and negative 6. So I'm going to rearrange it so all the yellow ones are side by side and all the green ones are side by side. And so here we have it. There's the green, and there's my yellow ones. Now I can add the like terms together. So the associative property allows me to group those, and I call it, now there's two ways to write it, 3m plus negative 4, because 5m plus negative 2m is 3m, and 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4, or you could call it 3m minus 4, because adding the opposite, right here, adding the opposite, adding a negative and subtraction mean the same thing. Make sure you're good with calling it either way. All right, to help us build that understanding, let's try to simplify 2x plus 4 plus 3x using algebra tiles. Now, up until now, we've talked about these tiles right here. We've talked about those, right? Well, starting now, we're going to introduce one new tile. It's that algebra tile. This is the x tile right here. It stands for 1x. So if I want to represent two x's, I would simply bring two x's, then plus 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I want to add 3x more right here. So this is 2x, this is 4, and now I need to add 3x. 1, 2, 3 x's. You can see why we combine the x's together, because they are the same. I have a total of 5 x tiles, and I have 4 positive tiles, 5x plus 4. This should demonstrate very clearly for you why you cannot call this 9x. You do not have 9 x's. You have 5 x tiles and 4 positive tiles. Let's try one more example like that to make sure we've got it. For you, when you're drawing on your paper, use a stick to represent the x tiles. So first I'm going to represent 3a. 1, 2, 3. An A tile and an X tile are the same thing. Then I'm going to represent 2. And that, remember, we just do 2 positives. Then we're going to represent 4A. So that's 4 variables, like that. And then, remember, we switch this to adding negative 1. So we're going to have 1 negative tile. I'm going to write the negative tile over here. So what do I actually have? What I actually have is these 3 and these 4, or 7x. Then I have a 0 pair, or you could have thought of it as taking away 1 positive. And then I get plus, let's go back to this, plus 1. So when I combine the like terms, I can't get it any simpler than 7x plus 1. All right. When your parents go out to the store or do math or do their taxes or evaluate a problem, they don't sit there with a pile of algebra tiles. They use the rules that they've learned and they apply it to using to the algebraic expressions. So we are not going to continue using algebra tiles any more than you find necessary. So 4f minus 2f plus 3. The first step that we talked about, and you can look back in your notes, is to rewrite the problem using only addition and write invisible 1 coefficients. All right, so let's rewrite this problem as 4f. Then I'm going to change this to adding negative 2f plus 3. The next step is to put the like terms by each other using the commutative property. Well, I see that they're already by each other. 4f, now I can go right into the associative property that allows me to group these. 4f minus 2f is 2f plus 3. And I don't have anything else to combine, so that's my answer. Okay, let's try the next one. The first step is to rewrite the problem as all addition. The next step is to use is to put them by each other, which they already are. Then to use the associative property to group them. 9 minus 3 is 6y plus 12. And that is as simple as I can get it. All right, I want you to try the next 4 problems on your own. Pause the video and come on back as soon as you're ready to compare your answers. All right, for this one, the first thing that I'm going to do is rewrite this as all adding. Then I'm going to use the commutative property to switch the order. Then, that was the commutative property of addition. Then I'm going to use the associative property to group these. That was the associative property that allowed me to group those. And then my answer is just left as negative 3a plus 7. Okay, moving on to the next problem. Again, 6 plus 1x plus negative 4x plus 3. Now I see that these are my like terms and 6 and 3 are like terms. So I'm going to use the commutative property to change the order. 1x plus negative 4x plus 6 plus 3. Then I'm going to use the associative property to group these. 1x plus a negative 4x is a negative 3x. 6 plus 3 is 9. Negative 3x plus 9. Okay, let's try the next one. You should be already done with this one. Now I want to get those like terms together after I rewrite this as addition. So 5a plus 2b plus 3a plus negative 7b. Now I want to get the b's by each other and I want to get the a's by each other. So 5a plus 3a plus 2b plus negative 7b. I get 8a plus, when I group that together, and plus negative 5b. Now make sure that you get okay with going one step further and calling this 8a minus 5b. I also want you to know that you could change the order of these, right? Commutative property says you could switch this around and call this negative 5b plus 8a. Either one of those, they all mean the same thing. And any of these would be acceptable answers on your homework. All right, going back and trying this one. 9 plus negative 2x plus 9x plus 6. Now, my constants are the 9 and the 6. So I'm going to rewrite those so that those two are together and that my x's are together. Then I'm going to use the commutative, that was the commutative property. Now I'm going to use the associative property to group these like terms together. Negative 2x plus 9x is 7x. 9 plus 6 is 15. 7x and 15 are not like terms, so that's as simple as I can get them. All right, this takes a lot of practice, so I would like you to pause the video, try the next 4. All right, so hopefully you've had time to try these 4. You should have gotten 7b. Whoops, let me change this to addition first. Plus 25 plus negative 4b. Then I'm going to switch the order. 7b plus negative 4b plus 25. When I use the associative property to group the b's together, 3b plus 25, and that's my answer. Okay, the next problem. It looks to me like all of these are like terms. So this is actually 1a. 1a plus 2a plus 3a plus negative 4a. Now let's add these together just from left to right. 1a plus 2a is 3a. 3a plus 3a is 6a. 6a plus negative 4a is 2a. So that one we can get down to one term. All right, the next problem. 12a plus 4 plus negative 10a. My like terms need to be by each other. Those are the two terms that have an a after it. 12a plus negative 10a plus 4. Now I'm going to group these using the associative property. 12a minus 10a gives me 2a plus 4. I can't get that any simpler than that because 2a and 4 are not like terms. All right, the next problem. It looks like the first step I need to do is rewrite this as addition. I call that 1x instead of x. Then I'm going to use I don't need to use the commutative property because they're already by each other. Going with the associative property, I group them. 1x plus negative 7x is a negative 6x. You can leave it like that, or you could call it 7 minus 6x, or you could have switched the order of these and called it negative 6x plus 7. In math, in general, we write the term with a variable first. It doesn't have to be that way. I will accept this and this as correct answers, but in math, we say the default is to name the variable and then the constant. All right, pause the video. Give yourself these 4 more problems to try. Press continue when you're done. All right, in this one, I'm going to get the 16. I'm going to change places, the 16 and the 7y using the commutative property. I'm going to call this 7y plus 16 plus negative 8. The next thing I'm going to use after the commutative property is the associative property, where I'm going to group these two together, 7y plus 8, and that is my answer. The next one, 18m. I'm going to, I better change that to addition first for you. Plus negative 7 plus 12m. Then I'm going to use the commutative property to switch the negative 7 and the 12. 18m plus 12m plus negative 7. 18m plus 12m is 30m plus negative 7, or I like to just say 30m minus 7. I feel like that either answer is correct, but I feel like 30m minus 7 is the most straightforward. All right, the next one. I would like to get these together. I'm going to switch these around, and I'm going to say 2x plus 7x plus negative 9y plus 20y. Right, then that was the commutative property. The associative property allows me to group these. That's 9x. Now, negative 9y plus 20y, that's a positive 11y. Now, they are both variables, but they are not the same variable, and so that is as simple as I can get it. You could also have written this as 11y plus 9x. Know that that would also be correct. All right, the next problem. This problem looks like all of my like terms are already together. I'm going to rewrite this as all addition, and I'm going to sneak these positives in here, or these invisible ones. 1c plus 2c plus 1c minus 5c plus 1. So going from left to right, 1c plus 2c is 3c. 3c plus 1c is 4c. 4c minus 5c, I should have written that as plus negative 5c. but 4c minus 5c is negative 1c plus 1, or negative c plus 1. Either of these answers is correct. All right. The next step, now we're going to mix in some distributive property with this. And I want you to get used to justifying each step. So the first step in this is to distribute. Now, I'm going to distribute this 3. So you're going to rewrite this as 4g plus 9 plus 3g. And over here, you're going to say distribute or distributive property. If you want to shorten that like this, that's fine. The next thing we're going to do is we want to get our like terms by each other. 4g plus 3g plus 9. That was the commutative property of addition. Then I'm going to group together the like terms. Grouping together, I get 7g plus 9. That's the associative property of addition. And this is my answer, 7g plus 9. All right, pause the video, simplify these two expressions, and make sure you're justifying each of the properties as you go. All right, hopefully the first thing you did was know that you need to distribute that 7. So this was given 7x plus 7z plus 6. You do not take 7 times 6. You only distribute into the parentheses. Now, do I have any like terms? No, I don't. There are no like terms to combine. So this is my simplified expression. Okay, let's try the next one. Whoops, I better leave that. I thought I could move one. Now here, notice this is a positive 5. So I'm going to distribute positive 5. I think that it's easiest for kids to always rewrite any subtraction as adding the opposite. So we're going to rewrite this as plus negative 3 before we get started. Now, 8c, let's distribute. 5c plus negative 15. That was the distributive property. Here we add the opposite. All right, then combine your like terms. I don't have to switch anything around because my like terms are already by each other. So we're going to jump right into the associative property. 13c plus negative 15. That is the associative property. Now, you can also call that 13c minus 15. That's the same answer. Okay, let's give a little bit more practice to this. If the number outside is negative, you will distribute the negative 3. This is like negative 3 being distributed into that set of parentheses. Now, notice, I want to explain something on the second one also. In the next one, the 5 is being distributed. This is being subtracted. This is not being multiplied. So you would distribute the 5, not the negative 7y. So now pause the video, name the properties, give this a try. Okay, hopefully you gave yourself some time to try this, paused it. Let's do this. This is a 1a. Negative 3 times 1a plus negative 3 times 5 plus 9. That's what we're actually dealing with here. This is, if you didn't write this step, that's okay. I'm just trying to write this down so everybody understands. Negative 3a plus negative 15 plus 9. So that was the distributive property. My next step is to combine my like terms. My like terms here are my constants. So negative 3a, and then I combine negative 15 plus 9, and I get plus negative 6, and that was the associative property. Or you could have just written negative 3a minus 6, which is my favorite way of writing it because it's the simplest. It's the most simplified version. Okay, the next one. 5 times 2y is 10y. 5 times 1 is 5 minus 7y. That was the distributive property. The next step, I need to rearrange these or change the order so that my y is next to my other y. 10y plus negative 7y plus 5. And that was the commutative property. Then I'm going to use the associative property to group these. I get 3y plus 5. And that's my answer. Right here. Okay. Give these two a try. Let's see. We're going to skip right over to, where are we at here? We're going to skip this first one, but we are going to do this one, this letter B. Let's see if I can unlock it and move it. We're going to do this problem right here. This is the one that gives people the most trouble. So you can put an X through that first letter A problem, and I want you to do letter B. Pause the video, but before you distribute, make sure you change all subtraction to adding the opposite. Okay, so first step was to change all subtraction to adding the opposite. That makes it really clear that you're actually distributing the negative 2. A lot of kids get that wrong, but if you remember to switch all subtraction to adding the opposite, you'll always remember to distribute the negative 2. I promise you there's a question just like this on your quiz and on your test, so I want to make sure you know how to do this part. So that's negative 10 plus negative 2x. Whoops. So the first thing you did was the distributive property. Then we need to rearrange the order of these so that the like terms are together. So my x's are my like terms and my constants are like terms. So I'm going to scooch that negative 2 next to that 4x. 4x plus negative 2x plus 3 plus negative 10. And that was the commutative property. Okay, now I'm going to use the associative property to rename this as 2x, and I'm going to rename the constants as negative 7, or 2x minus 7. They mean the same thing, and both answers are acceptable. That was the associative property. All right. The next one, I would like you to put an X through this one. We're not going to do this one, but I want you to do this 12 minus 4 multiplied by negative 8v plus 17 and justify those steps. So pause the video, see if you can do this one on your own without help. All right, so just to break this one down, we should start off by renaming this as adding the opposite. Now I can distribute the negative 4, and I get 12 plus negative 4 times negative 8v is a positive 32v. Negative 4 times 17. Now, if you have to do a side problem, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. You get 68 plus negative 68. Okay, so that was the distributive property. All right, the next thing, I need to use the commutative property so that my constants are by each other. So I'm going to rewrite this as 32v plus 12 plus negative 68. That was the commutative property. that allowed me to make that move. Then I need to use the associative property to group 12 and 68 together. So I'm going to rewrite this as 32v and then negative 68 plus 12. I subtract and give the sign of the bigger absolute value, which is negative. You could also name that as 32v minus 56, and that was the associative property. Okay. I think we've got the hang of this now. You can cross out these two because I feel like we've done enough practice. If you need to, you can do those as extra practice. Your assignment is your 2-3B worksheet. Give that a try, see how you can do. If you need some help, make sure you check back with me on a Google